when we're working with diastasis recti, it's very important that the movements that we're doing, not just in the gym in your exercise time, but also outside of that, are really working to support and strengthen your core and then support and strengthen the pelvic floor. Those are going to be the two most important aspects here. We also want to make sure that we're not doing any movements that are going to separate or make the separation worse than what it already is. So, a few of the things that you may have heard to stay away from or to avoid is in plank position, things that are in a plank position where gravity is pulling down on the belly. There are some ways to incorporate movements like that, but in a modified way that actually help us to fight against gravity and actually strengthen the muscles of the core. So we'll talk about that as well. I'm going to show you about 5 or 6 different movements that you can begin incorporating. I highly recommend that you do these on a daily basis, unless for some reason your core is just feeling very tired one day. You can obviously skip it if needed, but I definitely recommend even just starting your day or ending your day with these 5 movements. The goal on these movements is going to be 2 to 3 sets, and that rep range anywhere between honestly 5 and 10, even up to 12, just depending on how you're feeling and what makes the most sense for you at the stage that you are in. We're going to take it down to the mat to begin. A couple of things you're going to need is a mat or something comfortable on the floor. And then you are going to need a resistance band. So I'm going to be using this two-handled resistance band here. It doesn't need to be a very strong resistance band at all. So you want something that's actually medium to light. The goal on using this is not going to be like your arm muscles or strengthening that portion of the body. It's going to be teaching the core how we want it to move. So just a little, word to the wise on what kind of band to use for that. So we're actually going to start down on the mat. And the first movement we're going to begin with is a heel slide. You're going to begin laying down flat on the back. Your lower back is staying pressed into the ground. From this position, I want you to just start simply with sliding one heel all the way out in front of you, making sure that the back stays in contact with the ground, and then you're going to pull that heel right back in. Nice and slow and controlled. This is going to be level 1 on those heel slides, pulling that heel right back in. If you can maintain the lower back touching the ground, everything staying in contact with the mat, and this feels okay for you, you are welcome to take the arms up to the sky and then alternate opposite heel. So I'm going to go left heel out, right arm overhead, and then I'm going to bring it back in to that neutral position. If you add in this arm movement and that lower back starts to arch off the ground, just leave the arms out of it. Keep them in a nice, relaxed position by your side and just focus on the heel slide out and that slow, controlled heel slide in. All right. So again, movements here, aim in between. On this one, I would say between 8 and 12 total. So about four to 6 or so per side, slow and controlled, adding in the arms or not. So that's going to be your first movement. Second movement, you're actually going to stay right here on your back, is going to be a pelvic tilt bridge. So again, initiating the movement from the pelvis. I say from the pelvis, but it's really occurring from the core. But it's a slight tuck of the pelvis by engaging the core. So you're rocking your hips. I know it's a very small movement, but hopefully you can see it at my hips here. So this is neutral, and I'm just going to rock my hips slightly under by engaging my core. Once you have that little rock tilt, all right, then you're going to drive through those heels into that pelvic bridge. Coming up, if you get to the top of this movement, when you get there, take those fingers, place them in that the gap between in that linea alba. Test it to see, are you pushing? Are you making a cone or a dome with the belly? If so, come out of it, okay? Because that's not what we want. When you get to the top of that movement, test as well. Is it separating further than when it's in that neutral position? If it is, please come out of that movement. You don't want to go into that bridge just yet. So right now we're just pelvic tilting, pressing. Take those hands to the belly. Is that core engaging? And are you doming? If so, I don't want you to go to the bridge. And if it's gapping even more, I don't want you to go to the bridge. Just do the pelvic tilt. If you're okay with bridging, keep that belly button drawn in, keep that core engaged and that tightness in that midsection, and just hold that bridge for about 3 or 4 seconds and then unwind, coming right back out of it. Again, rep range between maybe 6 and 10, 6 and 12 on that. All right. Next movement, we're going to flip it over onto your hands and knees. We're going to go into a bird dog. So from this movement, we're going to be on hands underneath your shoulders and knees directly underneath your hips. Now, this is one of those movements where we're fighting against gravity. So what you may notice when you start, if you put your fingertips right in between and that linea alba, you may notice, oh man, it's gapping pretty big. And if that's the case, it might be because you're in a really relaxed position with the core. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about drawing that navel in and up to where you're in a straight spine, crown of the head to that tailbone. You'll know if you're in the right position when you put your hand right up in that section. It should feel like the gap is closing. May not be completely, but it's going to feel like it's getting closer together versus further apart. All right. So once you feel like you found that lovely position, holding that navel in and that core engaged, start with just the arms, then the legs, then you can put it all together. So I'm going to reach my right arm up by my ear, holding that position. If that feels good, slowly lower them back down. If you have shoulder tightness, you're welcome to take that arm a little bit more out to the side instead of directly overhead. Now I go right arm overhead. Now I'm going to try my left arm. Can I still keep my core engaged? Okay. Am I not drooping or slacking? Then we're going to take right toes and slide them directly behind me. Okay, I'm not lifting my leg off the ground just yet. This, you'll start to really feel the core fire right here. Slowly setting it down and then switching again, other side. This might be the level that you stay at for now. And if that works for you, you can feel the gap not separating, not doming, all right, by just sliding your heel back. Great. This is where I want you to start. About 8 to 10 reps there. If you're able to add in the arm reach, great. You can add in that arm reach as long as when you get to this position, you're not sacrificing, sinking into it and releasing that belly button or letting it fall towards the ground. All right. Eventually, the goal will be to progress to a lift of the toe about 2 inches or so off the ground. But again, this is a more progressed movement, so don't go there yet unless you feel like you're able to, and that split is not getting further apart, okay? So that's gonna be your third movement. We're gonna move into using the resistance band next. All right, so this next movement is called the Pallof press. The goal of this movement is actually an anti-rotation. So what happens with diastasis when that mid section has split, that linea alba splits, right? The transverse abdominis muscles and the obliques they're much weaker, and we tend to lose a little bit of control with those muscles. Excuse me. And so what we want to do is teach them how to get back in control. So the Pallof press, you're going to put a band around a stationary object. You can do this with 2 handles, or you can even loop it to make it a little less challenging if 2 handles is too much. But what you want to do is step away from that anchor point. You want to chest height. And you want the band directly in front of the chest, all right? And then the band is directly in front of me. I'm going to put my other hand over it. Feet are going to be just in a parallel neutral position here. Knees are soft. And you're going to pull the elbows towards the body and then press the hands away from you. So the goal is to not let the band take you towards the anchor point, all right? So find that position, stabilize. It should feel challenging. You're going to feel the core stabilizing you. It's going to feel challenging. So if you need to come a little closer to it, maybe make that not as hard, you can. So we hold here, pull back, press forward, pull back, and an inhale, press forward on that exhale. All right. Maybe 6 to 8 per side. That's definitely a more challenging movement. And then lastly, we're going to do a straight arm, a resistance band pull down. So I want you to anchor the band just above chest height, so kind of almost like chin level. And from here, we're simply, again, knees soft. We're going to simply take the palms overhand here, and we're just going to pull straight down and then control back up. And what you want to feel as you're coming down on that exhale, you don't want to lean over, you don't want to add any like extra weird anything. It's just simply a contraction from the core and then controlling back up. So if you happen to notice on that pull down, the arching of the lower back or protruding of the rib cage, try to reset, try to draw that belly button in, rib cage in, all right? And then reset and go back into that movement. So reaching out on an inhale and then control the bands back up. All right. So it's a slow, controlled movement. There's no need to speed through that. Did you hear my voice just kind of shake a little bit? That's because I know I'm using my core. So big exhale and then inhale to come back out of it. So those are 5 movements that you can begin incorporating. I highly recommend that you do these as daily as possible. They don't take very long to do. Maybe you just start with 1 set once a day, and then increase your weight to 2 sets, ideally working up to about 3 sets throughout the week, a few times a week. Hope these are helpful.